So I was working for this organization to help them improve their newsletter. Their newsletter was not raising much money. In fact, it was raising maybe $500, $1,000 an issue. It was clearly underperforming. They were clearly leaving money on the table. So they brought me in to help. And I was lucky because I've been working on the agency side of the nonprofit world for 20 years, seen hundreds of newsletters, have a pretty good handle on what works and what doesn't. So applied those things, applied those best practices to their newsletter, and the very first issue that I had a hand in raised $35,000. That was obviously a really big jump, and I attribute that jump in net revenue to three principles. The first principle is the writing of the newsletter. We wrote it to one person. Didn't write it to a group of people, didn't write it to all donors, didn't write it to everybody the newsletter gets. Write it as if you're talking to one person. So there's lots of yous in there. There's not a lot of we's, there's not a lot of us's. So that's number one, you write it to one person. Number two is the editorial perspective of the newsletter is not a newspaper. It is not a factual reporting. The editorial perspective is that the donor is a superhero. We wanted to tell the donor that they have done these amazing, fantastic things in the world, and we wanted to make it really real for them. So you use really interesting language with hard edges that people read and short sentences, and you really make it easy to digest. But more important than the easy to digest part is the fact that the donor was at the center. We lessened the distance between the donor and the beneficiary by taking ourselves out of the equation. That's number two. Number three is we went into this not making the mistake that most nonprofits make. The mistake that most nonprofits make is that they assume their newsletter is going to be read, and that's not true. They need to assume that their newsletter is going to be scanned. So here's what I do with any newsletter that I'm making. I make sure that within 3 or 4 seconds of just scanning the newsletter, even just the cover, that someone who is looking at it can know the entire story of the newsletter. And how do you do that? You do that in the headlines, the picture captions, and the pull quotes. For instance, in the previous issue of the newsletter, this organization had a big, long article about their computer lab. It was boring. And so there are a couple things wrong with that are, I think, helpful to unpack. First of all, it was about this big donation that had bought a computer lab. The message that's sending to donors is that, you know what, we don't need your donation because we've got these big donors who are giving us lots of stuff. Second, the headline, there was no reason to read the article. The headline was something boring like new computer lab, right? It had nothing to do with the kids, and that's the reason why someone is involved with this organization. So first of all, make the article about the kids, not about the computers. The computers don't matter. The computers are a tool. The computers are a process by which you're reaching the outcome of these kids whose lives are better because they're going to school because of your gifts. Second, getting back to the headline issue, the headlines should be something really interesting and value added, because remember, we're not doing news. We want to do National Enquirer, not National Geographic. So it should be something like future programmers with a subhead that said, these kids are learning computer skills thanks to your gift, right? Add value to the donor. The editorial perspective is that the donor is a superhero and the donor is making this all happen. Don't be newsy, don't give other people credit. It's happening because the donor gave a gift. Let's look for a second into what the pictures themselves should be of, because that's really important too. Most organizations, again, I'm starting with what most organizations do, but that's just a helpful illustrator. Most organizations put pictures of lots of people. Most organizations put pictures of staff members, even pictures of donors. Why are donors reading your newsletter? They want to know what their gift did. So you should put pictures of your beneficiaries doing things that are possible because the donor gave a gift. That's the big picture rule. What does that mean in practice? It means you should show beneficiaries doing things. If you run a kids camp, show pictures of kids at camp. Also, don't show pictures of large amounts of people. I could tell a very long story about how the psychological studies have talked about how hard it is to bond with a group of people and how much easier it is to bond with 1 or 2 people. Your pictures should have 1 or 2 people in them. The other thing that I tell people all the time when I'm doing a newsletter is eyes and teeth. In the photos, I want to see eyes, I want to see teeth. I want close-up, I want emotions, I want to start to get to know the people in the photographs. Again, this is not news, it's human interest. It's People magazine. Build relationship through photos, show beneficiaries, show them doing things that are possible because of your gift. Just to get in the granular detail here, most organizations, when they have a picture caption, if they have one at all, is they will just say that, this picture was done by Joe, a staff member. And that's a huge wasted space. It's a huge wasted opportunity. Instead, you should talk about what has happened in the lives of the beneficiaries because of the donor's previous gift. So you might say, if it's a picture of two kids at camp, you would say, here's Billy and Johnny who are enjoying this chance to go to the mountains for their first time ever, thanks to your gift. So, pull quotes. A lot of people don't know what they are, so I've got an example right here. So here's a newsletter, not the newsletter in question, but a newsletter. Pull quotes are the larger type quotes that you pull out of an article. And why do you do that? Because it gives the donor's eye another thing to fall on as they're scanning. Most likely they'll read that, and then maybe they'll jump down there. So why is that important? For this newsletter, well, the previous issue did not have any pull quotes, which meant there were fewer things for the donor to engage with. What we did was we put pull quotes in. The content of the pull quotes, what we did was we took quotes from parents talking about how much their kids' lives had changed since they started going to the school. So it's a great first-person testimony on the efficacy of the donor's gift. What a great way to communicate how effective the donor's gift had been, what a big change in the world had taken place. And because they read it in the quotes, it was right there and they knew it. They only had to scan it and it worked. So to recap, here's what we did. Number one, we made the newsletter to one person, not to a lot of people. Number two, we made the newsletter about the changes in the world that happened because the donor gave a gift. Number three, we designed the newsletter to work. We made it really easy for someone to scan and get the point, and it raised a ton of money.